I'm Donovan Kane. Welcome to my weekly podcast, where I read erotic stories for women to you. Why? Well, because sometimes you just want a man to read you a naughty story. This week's story was written by Sage Nite, and it's called Lost in the Moment. I hope you enjoy it. Carrie wasn't used to pampering herself. She always put others first in her life because the happiness of others was what made her happy. But today, she had been looking forward to her hair appointment to finally get that color she had dreamed of. She enjoyed going to her salon, as she always learned something new from the shop gossip that ensued. While Carrie listened to the chit-chat and waited for the red and blonde highlights to fuse with her natural brown hair, she decided to pick up a magazine to read. She was so excited to read something fun, as she felt she never had time to just do that. An article title caught her eye, and there was no way she was leaving that chair until she read the entire thing. The title of the article was, "The Things We Think About Sex, But Never Talk About Out Loud." She was intrigued by the title, to say the least, as she had never been one to start a conversation so personal with even her closest friends, but truly would love to be able to. Sex was everywhere in the world through ads, commercials, movies, TV shows, and especially books. But it was not a conversation starter, at least as far as the experiences she'd had. Carrie liked trying new things, being adventurous, and was always looking for new ways to bring passion and excitement into her and her husband's sex life, and into her life in general. As she was reading this article, one subject that stood out in her mind was the topic of the lifestyle of swinging. She was familiar with what it was, but had never experienced it for herself. Hell, she hadn't even known it was called a lifestyle. She and her husband had an amazing sex life, and had never imagined herself in the lifestyle. She always felt she had no reason to. Carrie loved Drew from the first time she laid eyes on him, and was insatiable for his touch. The orgasms he led her to were filled with such intensity, and he created a sense of eroticism with his every embrace. They were secure in their relationship, and there was no doubt in the strength of the bond that had been created between the both of them. They had never needed anything or anyone else to keep the lust in their sex life. They were, however, very open-minded in creating new adventures that brought the bond between them even closer. As she left the salon, thoughts of what she had just read blurred her mind. She wondered if she should talk to her husband about her thoughts, and what his reaction would really be. She knew this new knowledge was something she had to talk to someone about, because, as she walked through the parking lot, the moisture between her legs dampened her panties and triggered automatic, fantasizing thoughts. Carrie knew Drew wouldn't be home for a few hours, and she thought, who else am I going to talk to? So, she decided that when she got home, she was going to do some research on her own. Apparently, these thoughts were not going away any time soon, so she might as well learn more about this lifestyle and see what was really happening in the world around it. While she waited for Drew, she snuggled down in her favorite chair and propped the computer across her lap. She began her search and found article after sexy article about swinging and the lifestyle, as it was referred to. The more she read, the more she realized how mainstream this lifestyle had become. She had many burning questions. Why had she not known about this? Why was no one talking about it? Did everyone else know about this, and she was just oblivious to what was happening around her? She felt as though she'd been living under a rock. She understood the privacy issues and the personal intimacy that went with it. But even her closest friends didn't talk about it. So now another conundrum was set in her mind. How would she go about finding others who were also wanting to partake in this adventure? She was up for the challenge. Carrie read on, bouncing from one site to the next. As she read, she became more and more intrigued by the whole nature of the beast. Lifestyle outings, events, cruises, safaris. There was so much she was missing, and all centered around meeting new people, fun, and sexual escapades. Her smile gleamed from ear to ear, and when her husband walked in, his first immediate reaction was, "What the hell is she up to?" Carrie noticed him looking at her and pleaded, "Please, please, can we do this?" That wasn't exactly how she had anticipated talking to Drew about this, but she was exploding with information she had to share with him, and she couldn't wait to let it spill from her lips. Carrie first told Drew how much she loved him and always wanted to make life with him spontaneous, exciting, and passionate. There were so many new experiences they had planned, and she just came up with another one to add to the list. Her smile beamed as she began to tell him about the lifestyle of swinging. Her thoughts were all over the place, and suddenly Drew stopped her. "Whoa, my sweetie, slow down. First, your hair is beautiful. With that sparkling smile, you look like a dream. I see how excited you are. So tell me what you are working so hard on." Carrie took a deep breath, calmed herself down, and thought about how she could get just the right words out. She began from the beginning, and how she read this article at the salon, and how she just couldn't stop herself from looking further into it. She continued on with what she had found, and couldn't get her thoughts out fast enough. She told him about meeting new people, about the trips and cruises, and about how she thought this experience might bring them even closer together than they already were. Drew listened intently to Carrie, as he knew from her excitement that this was something she truly wanted to do. She continued and said, "Listen to this, Drew. I read about how this lifestyle can make relationships even stronger and even more intimate. I read how trust goes farther than just telling the truth. It creates its own level beyond that. Communication is a must, and by telling each other everything and talking about our deepest thoughts, that new level is formed. I read how swinging can provide a sense of balance in our everyday lives. It allows us to continue to work on our own personal goals with what we want to do as a family. But as you know, we can get caught up in the challenges that presents from day to day. By adding this lifestyle to those challenges, that balance provides excitement to what living really should be about. I also read how you can explore sexuality without the social stigma that goes along with it. You can meet new people who also believe in this with the same mentality. There is freedom to be yourself, which in turn could deepen the bond between us, when really who we are is who we fell in love with. Drew, when this freedom to choose what you want to do exists, so does happiness." Drew listened to Carrie rambling on and on about all that she had learned about this new topic. He smiled at her as he understood the message as it was being delivered to him loud and clear. He agreed with everything Carrie was saying and knew in his heart that if this was an adventure that she wanted to take, then he would do everything in his power to protect her, and they would make it happen together. Carrie stopped talking, took another deep breath, and looked deep into Drew's green eyes. She waited with anticipation for his response to all that she had laid out in front of him. Drew smiled with such a sincere, loving look that she knew he understood her desire and excitement in every word she spoke. As he looked back deep in her eyes, he said, "I have only one question. How do we get started?" Carrie jumped into Drew's arms, throwing her hands around his neck, and kissed him so intensely that her heart burned with lust for him. He kissed her back with the same adoration, and they both knew, without any words needed, that an erotic undertaking lay ahead of them. Carrie had lots of work to do to get the ball rolling, so she rushed back to the computer and searched for sites whose prime purpose was to match couples up in this lifestyle. She didn't know if this was what she was supposed to be looking for, but she had to start somewhere. She knew she wasn't going to just walk up to someone and ask them if they were a swinger, so she thought this would be a good place to start. She read reviews of different sites and thought, "I could do this all night. I'm just going to pick one and see where it takes us." The first thing she needed to do was come up with a perfect profile for her and Drew. All the reviews discussed being honest about what you were looking for, and to be specific about your dreams and fantasies in the lifestyle. She could do that. Next, she typed in the demographics and personal characteristics for each of them. "Almost done," she thought. "Now to find the perfect profile picture." She went through her pictures to find one that would reveal the most intimate parts of her body, but showed just enough to tease without revealing the whole package. Drew was always taking pictures of her, so she had plenty to pick from. They both decided together that they weren't sharing their faces to the world yet. They both held professional jobs and were still hesitant about how all this worked. After finding the perfect picture, she uploaded it to the site, checked everything over one last time, and hit submit. Carrie anxiously waited and wondered what would happen next. She spent the rest of the evening looking through other profiles and fantasizing about what it would be like to hold another cock, be with another girl, or lick a pussy. So many ideas popped up in her mind, all she could think about was, "Let's go." Carrie felt her heart racing and a warm, dripping feeling in her panties. She was definitely horny and knew she had made the right decision to want to try all of this with Drew. She hollered for Drew to come sit with her and help her pick out couples that they both wanted to meet. They decided that they would send out several messages and see who also might be interested in them. Whoever got back with them may be meant to be. They would soon find out. After an hour of searching for just the right couples for them, so she thought, Carrie was now so horny she couldn't keep her hands off of Drew. She rubbed his cock through his jeans until it was as hard as a rock. She clumsily, with one hand, unbuttoned his jeans and carefully pulled his zipper down to set it free, never stopping the caressing motion along the way. She was so glad that Drew also was turned on by the whole scenario of them and their new adventure together. She shoved her chair back away from the table so that she could get on her knees. She lowered her head onto his cock, taking it all in her mouth and feeling it swell to fill up the inside. Her saliva mixed with his pre-cum created a salty concoction of juices for her tongue. She spread it up and down his shaft and across the tip, sending a quiver through the muscle. The natural lubrication made it easy for Carrie to bob her head up and down as she engulfed his cock in and out to the back of her throat. Soft moans came from Drew as she continued to massage his cock with her tongue while holding his sack in one hand, playing its own game. She loved making him feel good, and in turn it was making her even more horny than she already was. Drew could feel the intensity of the blowjob and began to sway up and down with the rhythm of Carrie's movements. Just when Carrie thought he was ready to explode, he withdrew his cock from her mouth, slid her jeans and panties down, and laid her back onto the floor. Without hesitation, he kissed her passionately as he slid his cock inside her dripping, wet pussy. Carrie was overcome with emotion and love for Drew. She wrapped her arms around his back, grasping at the muscles with her hands. Squeezing tightly, she felt as though she couldn't get close enough, wanting his cock to slide deeper and deeper into her. She thrust her hips up, and with her head tilted back, felt her whole body begin to tingle. She tried to hold it, but a feeling came over her. It was a tightening feeling that she could hold no longer. She let out a cry of elation as her orgasm took over her body in such a way that she became lost in the moment. Her moment was shortened by the sound of Drew's deep breathing as she knew his orgasm was erupting. She could feel his cum rushing into her with a warmth and surreal feeling. She looked deep into Drew's eyes and felt as though she could not love him more than she did at that exact moment. The passion between them was unbelievable. Drew knew exactly what Carrie was thinking, as he always did, and leaned down to take her mouth with his. His deep kiss told Carrie that he felt the same way. "Wow," Carrie said. "That was amazing." "As always, my sweetie," Drew responded. "Now, what do you say we go check those messages? There are going to be some very lucky couples when we get through with them." Just as they were putting themselves back together, they heard, "Ding!" Carrie screamed, "Yay, we got one, Drew!" With curiosity and anticipation, they quickly clicked on the icon for mail. Carrie read the message. "Let's fuck." "Oh my God, Drew! Who says that?" Drew looked at Carrie and said, "I was afraid of that. But remember why people are on here, Carrie. To have sex." "I know, but really that bluntly?" she thought. I don't think that's someone I want to know. To each his own, she said. There will be more. Just be patient, Drew added. Carrie continuously watched the site and knew there had to be others looking for the same thing she and Drew were. They wanted another couple they could call friends, that they could have fun with in and out of the bedroom. She just knew the perfect couple would eventually show up. Then, on the third day, they received a message that was just what they had been looking for. "Drew, check this out," Carrie hollered. Drew read the message and said, "Well, there you go. They seem great." "I'm going to ask to meet them face to face so we can get to know them," Carrie said. "Well, that's how we'll truly know if this is the right couple to share this experience with," Drew replied. Carrie sent the message and waited with eager patience for the response. After what seemed like a decade, a message arrived. The couple sounded just as excited in their response, and Carrie already had the place and time in mind where all of this would go down. With quick fingers, she replied, "Awesome. Let's meet at the Roadhouse at 8 p.m. this Saturday night." Without a second passing, a response appeared that said, "Sounds great. See you both there, and looking forward to getting to know you." Carrie was elated and thought, "Oh my God, this is really going to happen." The week dragged by with her upcoming anticipation of the meeting. She kept herself busy in hope that time would go by faster. She fantasized all week about what his cock would look like and how it would feel. She fantasized about the girl as well, wondering what it would be like to touch another pussy. Her thoughts were all over the place, and every time she thought of what might happen, she immediately felt her panties fill with moisture. Carrie had a surprise for Drew. The Roadhouse was not the kind of bar he thought it was. It was a strip club that prided themselves on amateur nights, giving every woman a chance to explore their wild side. Spontaneous and extravagant was what she wanted this night to be about, so she knew this surprise would fit perfectly. Carrie managed to get the girl's number after instant messaging her on the site earlier in the week. Allison was her name, and she was on board with the surprise. Allison was not only on board, but it was her and her husband's first time meeting another couple as well, and couldn't feel more comfortable already than she did when talking to Carrie. When Saturday came, Carrie was dressed to a T. She put on her sexiest bra and panties that she could find. She bought them a year ago and waited for the perfect time to wear them. This seemed like the perfect time. Drew had never seen them, so she knew it would definitely be a shocker for him to see her in them. As they drove to the Roadhouse, Drew kept asking, "Now, what kind of place are you taking us to?" "Oh, you'll like it. It's more like a hole in the wall so we can talk," she said. She remembered that communication was the number one thing in this type of lifestyle that would make or break the trust they had. So she told him that she had heard of this place and that she and Allison had a surprise for him. They had been talking on the phone and truly felt like old friends. Drew was excited for Carrie that things were going wonderful on the phone with Allison, and he reiterated to her that he would keep her safe and would trust her in her decisions. He also told her that he would be very overprotective at first until the other couple earned his trust as well. Carrie understood and smiled an even bigger smile. "I love you, Drew." "I love you too, Carrie." They arrived at exactly 8 and waited in the parking lot for Allison and Rick to show up. They weren't sure what they looked like, but Carrie knew she would know when she saw them. A car pulled in right behind them, and Carrie immediately jumped out. "Let's go," she pleaded. She turned to Drew, gave him a huge, wet kiss, and said, "Let's do this." Carrie jumped out of the car, looked behind her, and yelled, "Allison?" Allison jumped out of the car and ran to embrace Carrie with a huge hug. They whispered to each other and then exchanged hugs with each other's husbands. After introductions, Carrie exclaimed, "Boys, we have a surprise for you." The two men looked at each other and both said together at the same time, "It figures." The night started off smoothly. They found it easy to talk to one another, and as time passed, the flirting gained momentum. At one point, Carrie found her hands under the table with her new friend's cock in one hand and her husband's in the other. She couldn't believe what she was doing. Then, over the loudspeaker, the DJ was rallying the crowd. The couples heard the blaring of a voice over a bullhorn yell, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's the stripping hour." Without hesitation, and without any time for Drew to mutter a word, Carrie and Allison jumped up and rushed the stage. Just as they jumped, stripper poles were being lowered from the ceiling onto the dance floor below. Drew exclaimed, "Oh my God, Carrie is in absolute heaven right now." The two girls were in no way professional strippers, but both had the motivation, and not to mention a few drinks, that would allow them to create some lasting memories through this experience for them as well as the crowd. Grinning from ear to ear, Carrie and Allison seductively moved across the stage from pole to pole. As they met in the middle, they began to undress each other, not with their eyes, but with their hands. Carrie's body moved to the rhythm of the song in the background, while she slowly unbuttoned each tiny round button down the middle of Allison's shirt. As she unbuttoned the last one, she pulled the shirt off each shoulder and let it drop to the floor. Allison's tan back and white satin-trimmed lace bra were unveiled. The bra begged to be undone so as to uncover her voluptuous breasts, hidden underneath. Sounds of whistles, hoots, and hollers and clapping came streaming from the crowd that had now moved themselves closer to the stage so as not to miss a single moment. All the excitement and noise around Carrie aroused her even more and allowed her to pursue Allison's body with ease, ridding her of all her jitters that she had been feeling that morning. Carrie unclasped the bra from around Allison's back, twisted the strap around her finger, and let it fly into the crowd. She smiled at Allison and said, "I couldn't resist. This is just too fun. I'll get you another bra." Allison tilted her head back and just laughed. Carrie was so overwhelmed with excitement that she found herself doing things that she never thought possible, especially in front of others. She couldn't stop now. With both hands, she caressed Allison's nipples until they were rock hard and continued massaging and fondling them until Allison began to whimper from pleasure. The sounds coming from Allison turned Carrie on more than she could even imagine. She continued her journey with her hands by moving them down Allison's sides until she reached the waistband of her black miniskirt, which covered what Carrie wanted to see most. Without missing a beat to the music, the groping, squeezing, and caressing continued until the clothes of both women lay in piles on the dance floor. They were putting on a show like no one in the club had ever seen before, and their two husbands were speechless. Carrie held nothing back. She took center stage and motioned with her index finger for Allison to meet her in the middle. Allison strode over to meet Carrie with seduction in her eyes. This time, Allison's hands came alive as they explored the contours of Carrie's whole body with a purpose. Allison could feel the lushness of Carrie's breasts and her hardened nipples in her mouth as she began to suck on them and propel her tongue around and across each one. Allison's hands proceeded down Carrie's sides and around her back until she had both of her hands cupped around Carrie's butt. She gently squeezed as she pulled Carrie toward her own body, pussies rubbing hard against one another. The simultaneous motion aroused their clits with a tingling sensation that triggered a feeling of euphoria that was overtaking any other thoughts they had. Lost in the moment, they suddenly heard clapping again, and they were brought back to reality. With the encouragement of the crowd, they both let their hands slide into each other's wet, dripping pussy, gently rubbing in and out, brushing across hardened clits. Both women began to let out moans of ecstasy, and the wetness was intensifying down both their inner thighs. Just as they were about to explode with orgasms that would send them to another world, Carrie heard Drew's voice say, "Wake up. Wake up, Carrie. It's your big night tonight. Let's get this day started so we can go on and meet this new couple from the site."
"What?"
Carrie asked.
"It was all a dream?"
Carrie could not believe that what she just experienced could have been a dream. But it wouldn't be for long, as she knew the night would go just as she had dreamed, and couldn't wait for it to begin. The end. I'm Donovan Kane, and you've been listening to Lost in the Moment, written by Sage Nite. On my weekly podcast, Donovan Kane reads erotic stories for women. I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to follow the podcast. There's a new story every week. Thank you for listening. Till next time, goodbye.